So today we've got a split charge relay kit that I have bought for my Mazda Bongo, and I bought this from Clear Cut Conversions. I'll put a link in the description. This is the pre-wired one, so it's all basically ready to fit. Despite Clear Cut saying that there's detailed instructions on their website, etc., there isn't really, not for this anyway. That is basically what's come with it, with a link to the website, which doesn't really show how to fit one specifically. It does show one to put under a seat in a T5 VW, but that's about it. So, like you, I went on YouTube and I've used some of the forums, which have been very handy, to have a look and see what I need to do. And actually it does look relatively straightforward. In the kit, as you can see, you've got the voltage sensing regulator, which charges the leisure battery and makes sure that when it drains, it doesn't also drain the main battery. There's a large fuse that side, there's a large fuse over the other side to protect both those sides. You've got some ribbed corrugated tubing for your wiring. There's a fuse box to switch fuses that are currently on the starter battery with ignition on only over to using on the leisure battery. So for example, I can switch the radio to the leisure battery. I can switch my electric blinds, to the Volkswagen owners that don't have electric blinds, but I can switch the electric blinds so they work off the leisure battery, and a few other bits and bobs. So, and then you get little stickers to go on that. You've got the live to go to that. You've got an earth strap, obviously, for your leisure battery. And then there's some other bits and bobs, zip ties, clips, bit of heat shrink. Your new positive and negative for the leisure battery connectors. So for example, that would go on there. And there's a little bit here about the actual voltage sensitive relay and fitting that. And you've got the big fuses, etc. for that. That's it. So now let's line it up on the van, see where we go from there. The only other thing to say is to decide which way around you want the BSR to go, nearest to the leisure battery or nearest to the car battery that's already there. And actually, having a look at this little bit of paper that they've sent, the pre-wired kit is in format 1, which is this one, and essentially it's a VSR nearest to your starter battery. So I already know that this will be closest to my starter battery, so this will be for the live on my starter battery. Simple. Okay, here we are now in the engine bay. So tip number 1, I've put in my battery, my leisure battery, and scrape my knuckles. So, and now I need to find a decent earth point, which is where your multimeter is going to come in handy. But now I try to remove the battery and it's really difficult. So tip number 1, remove this cowl. It's literally 2 plastic screws. So get rid of that out of your way. And it simply lifts up, pull it forward towards you, and it comes right out. It's going to give me a lot more space over here now. And remove the leisure battery, hopefully. Okay, you can see the battery tray. Now what I need to do is find a good earth. So there's a multimeter that I got, I think, from eBay or Amazon or QD or somewhere. You only need a basic one. Black is the common, and then red for the maximum 600 volt side. And now what I want to do is change it so that the ohms, which is the impedance, so you're looking for something that when I connect these will drop to 0 essentially. And this one gives off a little beep, you might hear it. So when the two are connected, it's nearly dropped all the way down to 0. Okay, so that's what I'm after. So now I just need to find somewhere. My negative side is over here, so I need to find somewhere that's within this length to earth, to the chassis. So I think I've found one. There's a screw here, so I can tap that out, clear it out, and okay, so I've got my M6 stainless stud. Let's just make sure I've got the right size. Lovely. That screws in absolutely fine. So it doesn't even need to be tapped. Make sure you've got a good washer. Make sure you've got a bolt that's got a reasonable amount of thread on it. The obligatory copper grease. And that should be a battery earth strap fitted. Because of the big VSR, the relay, it's going to be easier to thread this from this side right to the back of the bongo, as far back as you can go behind everything. I'm now recording this the next day when I've had some time to think about why I wasn't getting any charge to the leisure battery. I've gone back to the instructions and I've gone back to YouTube and I know what I've done. So here on the bottom of your voltage sensing relay, you see the red dot. That's positive. That's supposed to be the terminal that comes from the main battery. Okay. Unfortunately, what I've done, despite the small instructions out of clear cut saying the shortest end should go to the main battery, I have actually done it backwards. So the switch will only ever go from the leisure to the starter, and that's just not going to happen. So now I have two choices. I either move the VSR and leave everything else intact, or I reverse these two wires. Now that would work. My concern is that this cable's slightly thinner than this cable, because it goes from a fat cable to a thin cable back to the fatter cable with the fuses on. I suspect I could do that, but actually I think I'm going to have to redo it. It's only a matter of unclipping that and undoing that. It's not very big work, and finding a slightly new earth point for the little earth on the regulator. My biggest challenge is that on the short part on a bongo, where to remount the regulator, and I think I'm going to have to end up drilling into the back of the bongo here into the firewall, and that's going to be a lot of work because I just can't see anywhere else to mount it. That's not going to be in the way. Again, I could put my air scoop back on here, I guess, but I also suspect then it would have to sit about here or here, and the bonnet will catch it. So I'll just get on with it. Okay, so I've recognized that I've probably made a mistake here, and I'm probably being overcautious, but with electrics and the possibility of a van going on fire, I think that's better, very much better to be safe than sorry. So currently we have the short lead going over here and the longer lead going from the starter battery to the voltage sensing regulator to the leisure battery. And essentially this is then wired in reverse, because it's been wired to go from the short one to the long one, i.e. the starter to the leisure battery. So I've created a system that will never charge the leisure battery the way I've got it at the moment. So the solution is either move this to somewhere over here, which I just can't see anywhere easy to do that, quite honestly. So instead I've gone on to eBay and I've decided to replace this thinner wire, which I'm sure is fine in the other configuration, but I've decided to buy some proper battery wire and a new fuse to replace this one, to make this all battery thick wire. I'm just not chancing it, basically. So what I need to do is swap these around. So get the short one onto this one, and then you can see there's a red dot here. That's the positive. This is the one I need to put my new thick wire back onto. So let's get on and do that, I think. Okay, so job number one, before I mix anything up, is to simply swap over these terminals. And now I can get my brand new battery cables. 2 new battery cables. In fact, they're actually thicker than even the original on the thick side. So these are proper battery ones, so to speak. I think they're 16 mil square. That's what it says on them. So I'm going to use the short one. We'll go to a fuse, and then the longer one will go from the fuse to the actual voltage sensitive relay. And ready to be put back on. But first of all, this is a 50 amp, same as this bladed fuse, 50 amp fuse, which will go between the starter battery and the voltage sensitive relay. Essentially, you just pop it open. The fuse goes between these 2 studs, and one end will go on there like that. One end will go on like that. The other end to the starter battery, the fuse in between. Clamp it all down with the nuts and close it. And that is a fuse. In this pack from eBay, I can't remember, I'll put what it cost me on eBay and what everything cost me in the description of the video. So it's probably cost me more than buying one from a Bongo person, but hey ho, you learn by doing and by failing and how you fix things. So I'll get on and just fit this basically. Okay, so that's the fuse, rated at 50 amps. And we've got our 2 little nylock nuts. So let's just put all that to one side for a second. I've got my shorter battery cable. I think this is 15-inch, which I'm going to put in one side. Just put the nut on hand tight. That's my spanner. That's just dropped all the way through the engine and thankfully onto the ground. And then this end. Okay, got my spanner back, my ratchet back. So where was I? Okay, so, and then this end now goes on here. Again, get the nut on loose. Okay, I hope you can see this. The angles are a bit awkward, I know. So this is a fusible link, it's a fuse. And then this piece of metal, slide it. under one nut at a time, essentially. It's a little fiddly, but it's doable. Once you've done that, tighten it up. It's two 8mm nuts. Tighten it up so it's nice and tight and firm. That's it, clamped. Now I've done that, I'm looking closer at these metal bits and I'm thinking perhaps they should get protected. And in the kit does come a bit of heat shrink, or more accurately 2 pieces of heat shrink. So I think I might undo this and actually just put some heat shrink there, because it'll stop any arcing in the engine bay. I don't mind at the battery ends, that's normal, but actually I'd feel a lot happier having some heat shrink on there. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. I've slipped a piece of heat shrink over where I want between the metal. Here you can see, look. You can see a little bit of the copper strand wire here. So a bit of heat shrink and a lighter. You can use a lighter and you need to hold it underneath so only the heat gets it. Don't use the flame. You want the heat to rise and to shrink the heat shrink. That's all you want. Some people have a hot air gun. Use that. That's even better. Again, slow and steady is the way to do it. You don't need a big flame. Just nice and careful that it's nice and taut and shrunk around this. Now, job done. That'll make it a much safer connection. One more to do. So I've still actually got my little fuse sat there, so close, and that's sealed, and we're done. Now all that's left is to connect up my live to my live, make sure it's earthed, back again to where it was earthed, and then hopefully that will work. So let's get the leisure battery hooked up first. These need quite a bit of force on them to get them down, but they very easily pop up. So when you undo them, just be careful because they sort of snap up at you. So you just have to be very, very careful with that. Make sure you're happy with the routing of where your cables are going. These will be zip tied so that they don't shift around, because that'll be a lot safer. And now we're over at the battery end, the live end. And what I need to do is get this cable up behind, out of the way. So next step is to connect that to the live. So we are essentially connected. I just need to check on the multimeter over to DC. Put my live on to the live, earth onto earth. I'm getting 13.12, 0.16. Okay. Let's do the same on the leisure battery now. It's going to be a little bit more fiddly because of these. You can't easily get at the live and the neutral. So just gently bring the cap up without undoing it. So that's on the live. And I just need to get it onto my earth.
12.9. I hope you can see that. My hands are stuck, so I can't lift it towards you. 12.9, 12.89. Okay. So that's pretty good. What I want to do now is start the van and make sure that this actually increases. Alright, as we can see on the starter battery, it's gone up to 14.4. So I know my starter battery's charging, I know my alternator's fine. Also, looking at the top of the VSR, it says that it cuts in at 13.3 volts. So we're almost a volt higher than what the VSR says, and there should be a little light on the VSR. Let's have a look at that. 60 amps. There's a little red light to the left there. And I don't know if I can get it to focus properly for you. But it says it cuts in at 13.3 and out at 12.8. So the leisure battery drops below 12.8. This should switch off. The red light should go off. And that way you don't drain the starter battery. Okay? So let's get the voltmeter onto this. Okay, so I think it was 12.3 or 12 point something on the leisure battery. So again, very gently get on the live, get on a good earth, and there you go. You can see it's charging up to 14.2, 14.3. So that's it, it's working. Just to say, my next challenge will be fitting a fuse box to run the blinds and the radio and probably the cigarette lighters off the leisure battery, but that'll be a separate video. I hope that this has helped you. I will zip tie this down when it stops raining tomorrow, make sure everything is safe again. But I hope the video's helped, and subscribe if you want to. Always handy for bookmarking things for reference.